Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we currently need to figure out what we want to do next. We're at a bit of a crossroads here. We can either position a satellite in a specific orbit of Minmus, or we can dock two vessels on or around Kerbal. Those are our options. Well, let's take a look in the VAB here. I want to see if we have access to the science laboratory. Let's see here. I don't believe we do. So I think we'll wait for the time being until such a time as we have access to the laboratory. And that would be when we do the docking, because I would like to do a science station in orbit. That would be a good thing to do for the time being, to work our way through the tech tree a little further. We can't really go to the asteroids and do what we want to do just yet. We need to get some more technology for that. So I think all we're going to do here, because we don't have access to that, is we're going to take a comsat out to Minmus here, and this comsat is completely capable of doing that. There's not going to be a problem. We can even do a more efficient injection than we did with the moon. That was a really inefficient injection orbit. There's no doubt about that. So let's go ahead and launch this as is, and it'll be fine. We'll just take this out to Minmus. No problem. We haven't been to Minmus yet, and we're going to do a landing on Minmus. Honestly, our moonlander is also more than capable of landing on Minmus. That's my rule of thumb. If you have a decent amount of margin on a Minmus lander, you can land on the moon. Any moon lander should be able to land on Minmus as well. So we're just going to go ahead and launch this. We're going to try to get a bit more of a... helps if I throttle up. We're going to try to get a little bit more of a decent ascent trajectory here, because we overshot the altitude pretty heavily previously. So let's just go ahead and pop over to prograde. Excellent. And this is looking reasonably fine, although our heading is pretty far off. Let's hop into maneuver mode here and pull that on down. Better on the heading. Excellent. Okay, so we are at about 45 degrees here, and our apoapsis is only 7 kilometers. I feel like we're going a little too much horizontally right now, but we'll see where this... where this... Wow, words are very difficult all of a sudden. We'll see where this ends at in terms of its trajectory tipping over. 15 kilometer apoapsis at this time. 18. I mean, we're getting a lot of speed through the atmosphere. There's perhaps too much speed through the atmosphere, to the point where I'm thinking about scaling back on our burn until we have more altitude here. Down to like 25%. We're doing very little gravity fighting right now. We need to get up higher. We've definitely got some heating going on here. We're doing okay in terms of the horizontal velocity. That's for sure. Only a 40 kilometer apoapsis. We're going to need to see about getting ourselves some more altitude. So let's sit around here for the moment. And we're getting ourselves altitude up to 100 kilometers. That'll do. We'll swap back over to orbital prograde, although we're going to tumble here without access to the engine gimbaling. That's reasonably expected, but altitude should mean that we are able to get that back under control. And yes, we indeed exactly are. So this will be fine for the moment. You can see our orbital velocity is decent. It is by no means good enough, but we're very close. So we're just going to hop up over here. That was an okay ascent. It was a little bit spicy on the heat, but all things considered, I'll consider that reasonable. I mean, this is only another 460 meters per second to make it into orbit, so that's fine. At this junction, we can deploy our fairing. That is okay. That'll save us some weight. And we're just heading on over to the maneuver node here. It's going to be, of course, T-minus 5 seconds that we burn this. So that'll be just fine. What is our eccentricity, or rather our inclination? 1.2 degrees. I mean, we're going to have to adjust our inclination for Minmus anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. That'll be just fine. So let's get into position here. Good enough. And we'll warp on forward. T-minus 5 seconds is when we want to warp till. That was a little more warp than I was comfortable with. We'll just back this off now. This is, of course, going to be a prograde burn, so we can just chill prograde for now. And we want to burn right now. There we go. And that's an orbit. We'll call that good enough. And we'll just go on to stability assist. Next up, of course, we need to go to Minmus, which is all the way out here. This is the moon. This is Minmus. We'll set that as our target. Minmus is at a pretty extreme inclination compared to the moon. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's like 5.3 degrees off right now. So at the descending node here, we will go ahead and add a maneuver. And we will want to... Is this the wrong way? 2.3 degrees? Okay, this is the right way. 0.1, and we'll just... There we go. That is probably fine. Yep, something about like that. Okay. So we will position for that burn. That is going to be a very minor burn as well. We are still not burned out of this major first stage, so that's kind of hilarious. I'm attempting to turn here. It's slow, no doubt about that. As I said last time, this reaction wheel is not intended to turn all of this. So, it's definitely a bit of a problem. Eventually, we might put, like, RCS thrusters on this or something. There will be further refinements to this, absolutely. I mean, this relay antenna isn't perfect. That's for sure. But T-minus 2 seconds is when we want to burn this, so we will just continue to head on over here. Now that we've gotten moving, it's fine. We will get there soon enough, and we're going to hope to not to overshoot it here. We'll just use the time warp to brake, which is a little gamey, but it's convenient. Okay, we've missed a little bit. We will just adjust that. Definitely takes a while to get going on these turns. There we go. We'll call that good. And we'll go ahead and warp to next maneuver. Of course, T-minus 2 seconds is when we want to burn this. So we will continue to warp for a bit here. Okay. And let's burn right about now. We'll call that good. Yes. So we are in the correct inclination now. And Minmus is currently here, so we're probably going to want to burn for Minmus somewhere around here. Let's see how that's looking. Moon encounter there, but that's a reasonable Minmus encounter. Now, we want to be going this direction, and that is the correct direction. So we do not need to reverse our orbit. I do, however, want to grab this guy. I don't want to add a maneuver. I want to modify this existing maneuver. It does not want to let me do that. Okay. Wow. It really doesn't want to let me modify this maneuver. There we go. Now, if we go back to Minmus, will that stay up? The answer is no. We'll just have to attempt to get the camera where we want it. It's difficult, for sure. Don't want to add that maneuver. There we go. Okay, so we're going to look at this periapsis, and we're going to bring this in a little bit. So if we go to the graphical maneuver editor here, this will probably make it a little bit easier. The scale is way too high, so we're going to turn the scale way, way down. And we're going to bring it in to about here. Now we're going to need to change this inclination to match this, but this will be fine as a starting point. So we'll call that good. And we'll need to maneuver on around. Now I'm going to physics warp here as we turn to make this turn go just that little bit faster. And by a little bit, I mean 4 times faster. This is 4x speed. Okay. We'll call that good, and we will go ahead and warp to the next maneuver. This is going to be at T minus 19 seconds that we want to burn this. And that's fine. So we'll just position here. There we go. And warp a little bit further forward. T minus 19. Okay. And off we go. So we're going to ditch our primary stage here. And off we go with our tiny little maneuvering stage, which we'll be able to turn much more readily. We'll just park prograde for the time being. Okay. As you can see, our encounter needs a little bit more delta V here. It always is shocking to me how quickly getting to Minmus fills out here. Okay, just chasing the node a little bit. I overshot there. We're going to need to flip around to retrograde. And we'll do a small correction burn. We need to correct 3.3 meters per second. Okay. That's good enough. There we go. Once we reach this location, of course, we will go ahead and do a retrograde burn here. Not quite that retrograde. This retrograde will be enough. Cool. And then we will match inclination, which will be easy enough. Yeah, that'll be fine. No real problem there. So our next step is, of course, to warp to here. Goodbye, Kerbal. This particular vehicle will never see you again. And there goes the moon. Hey! Surface deployed mystery goo from the surface of Kerbal. So that completes that contract due to the comsat that we put in there. And there's our first flyby of Minmus. We'll go ahead and grab the temperature scan, and we may as well transmit that back, actually. Temperature scans are completely fine to transmit, so we will review that data, and it's only 70% value, but that's okay. We'll transmit that back, and we'll grab it again, and transmitting again doesn't actually do anything. We would need to recover it. That's right. So we'll go ahead and position on the node a little bit closer. There we go. And continue to warp in towards Minmus. Hello, you giant ball of mint frosting. T-minus 6 seconds is when we want to burn this. And that will be absolutely fine. We'll warp on towards that. And we'll burn this right about now. Excellent. That's good enough. And at this point, we want to angle about like this, and then at this descending node here, we'll add a maneuver and other direction. We're going to want to come in about like this to match planes, and we may as well toss in a bit of retrograde there as well. And with that retrograde, we are, of course, going to want to alter our inclination a little bit. So something about like this will do just fine. Okay, so that's going to be our next burn. Technically, we maybe should have burned it on this side. Yeah, probably, but this'll do. We'll just go ahead and warp over towards that after we get into position. Close enough. And around we go. This is a very, very minute burn here. We're going to go on to stability assist. Thank you very much. And we're going to warp forward a little bit. Very, very minor. Only 10 meters per second. It doesn't matter that much when we do this burn, as long as it's pretty close to this time. So we'll just get that on done. Okay, I'm going to reposition us here and just burn a tiny amount. That's good enough. So descending node is at 0, At this point, at this periapsis, we are going to add a maneuver and burn... Actually, no, we're not. What am I doing? I need to stop that. I accidentally burned there. We need to turn that on around. Like, get back to prograde for right now. How much did we change our descending node? A lot. Okay. I messed that up. I accidentally fired the engine there. I did not intend to do that. Okay. Come back. This is the node I want. We'll get there in a moment. Okay. Yeah, that was definitely a mistake on my part. No question about that, but I just hit the wrong key. Okay. Now stop going for retrograde. Thanks. Let's get that recorrected. There we go. And then we're going to need to go around to prograde and push this periapsis back out. So at prograde here, we'll just push that out to here. That'll do. And then at this periapsis, we will just burn retrograde a bit here. It doesn't matter that this is not exactly lined up, but we may want to toss in just this little bit of radial just to make that line up a bit more. Yes, this will definitely count for the contract. We can pull that back retrograde a little bit more just to not that much, just a little bit more to absolutely nail this particular orbit. That's definitely close enough. Okay, we will position for this burn. That burn will be in about a day. That's absolutely fine. Okay, and off we go. We, of course, got the first scientific data from Minmus and also entered orbit of Minmus. And we'll be ready to do this burn very shortly. This is a very minute burn, and again, it doesn't really matter that much when we do this, as long as it's similar to our time here. So burning it right now is actually absolutely fine. This is close enough for contract work, but I'm going to finish off the node there. There we go. Now we just need to hold attitude here. And apparently that counted. Cool. Okay. So there's our satellite in orbit of Minmus. It's a kind of awkward orbit, but it's an orbit nonetheless, and it'll give us connectivity out over here, which is always a good thing. So we will go ahead and head on back to the KSC. Apparently this pop-up isn't popping up. Sure, we'll just go back to the Space Center this way. Didn't get the button up top, but that's okay. So what are we going to do next? Well, we need to do a bit of a science farm. And honestly, the best way to do that at this point, I think, would be to go to Minmus. We've already got the rocket for it. Let's see here. Green sandstone from Minmus? Yes. Greater Flats, Great Flats, or Lowlands. Done. Surface outpost on the moon? Maybe not so much. All of these are, I think, not going to be great necessarily. Docking would be very good, though. Maybe we should just do, like, a full-on Gemini mission with an actual docking port. So if we were to do that, we would want to do, like, I mean, we've got the Hopper 3 Block 3 here. This is ridiculous, and we're not going to do this. We're going to make a new ship here, and I think we are going to go ahead and do the docking. That'll probably be next episode, but we'll work on designing the ships this episode, I think. So we're just going to run, like, a Mark II command pod, I think. Or actually, no, we're going to run a P re-entry module. We don't need to bring any science experiments on this because there's no science to get. So all we're going to need here is... I do think that we should bring a reaction wheel, obviously. And we're going to just bring a small inline reaction wheel here. And then on top of that, we are going to bring a battery. And then on top of that, we're going to bring our recovery chute. Something like this. And then we're going to bring our radial mount drogue chutes, as we normally do, right up there like that. So this is going to be a bit of an abbreviated re-entry. This has an ablator of its own, so we probably don't even need a heat shield on this thing. Yeah, I think we'd be fine to just come back like this. Now, we're going to need a docking port. And the question is, where are we going to put the docking port? Here's the thing. I'm actually going to drop this parachute, and we are instead going to put in, for weight reasons, a pair of radial mount chutes here. And we're going to just put the docking port up top. Now, this is, I believe, not obscuring the hatch. It doesn't really matter if it is, but I believe it's not. So, docking. I mean, we've got command and control, and we're going to want RCS on this. So we could bring, like, RCS thruster blocks. It would be fine to just bring, like, these bad boys here. And we'll put those maybe a little further down. They're not very expensive, right? Actually, let's get ourselves an RCS fuel tank on here, like that. And then we'll just put the RCS thrusters on here. What have these got for their thruster power? 1.0, 1.0, 0.1, 0.1. Okay, so it kind of doesn't matter which of these we go for. I think we'll just go for this one. And we're going to put something like... And we could put 8 on here. That'd be kind of funny. We'll just put 4 on here, though. That should be sufficient. We also want at least some power generation capacity. So we're going to do this as well to generate power. And I think we'll try to recover this entire body here. So we'll put a heat shield on here. That heat shield would go right here. And then we'd have a decoupler, just a TD12, like so. Okay. And then we'd need some sort of a maneuvering stage here. So we'd just do something like a T400 and a Terrier. That would be absolutely fine. Or a Pug. Even a Pug could work. What would that thrust to weight be over Kerbal? Pretty low. Maybe we do go for a Terrier. Over Kerbal, yeah, that's much better thrust to weight. Okay, so something like that. Now, on top of this, we're going to need some docking ports. All we've got is the Clampatron Docking Port Junior, and that will be absolutely fine. We'll just attach that right up there. And then we are going to put in a secondary stage. And the question is, how overkill do we need this secondary stage to be? I think this is a pretty light first stage here. Or rather, a pretty light second stage and payload. So it should be fine. Like, I feel like we don't need to go for a mainsail or anything. I mean, we could. We absolutely could do, like, fuel adapters and such. I don't want to sort by mass. Just go ahead and sort by name. Thanks. That'll do. We could do fuel adapters, not that one. It would be this one followed by this one. And a single big orange tank would be more than enough for this. I'm quite positive on that. So that would be... Let's see. I'm not used to it being sorted like this. The Rockamax Jumbo 64. It would just be something like this. This is wildly overkill, right? I just want to see what the actual thrust to weight here is. 2.43. Yeah, that's very, very overkill. But this would definitely get us into orbit. For sure. This would absolutely get us into orbit, and we'd have plenty of maneuvering as well. We'd be able to use the RCS to do the actual docking. Yeah, I think this is fine. It's not that expensive. So who are we going to bring? Well, we're going to bring Jeb and Bill, and then the other one will bring Bob and Valentina. We want to do an actual dock here, but that's fine. So that's all designed here, and we'll just call this the Overkill Docker. There we go. And we'll save that. Now, it's a little late in the episode to actually start the mission, but I wanted to get the actual craft designed here. I doubt that we need any aerodynamics on this either because of the power of this mainsail. So that should be absolutely fine. And in fact, we can even thrust limit this mainsail back quite a ways to 66% is good. Okay, so that'll do just fine. And with that, like I said, it is time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to dock these guys in orbit of Kerbal. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And I will see you all next time.